All history enthusiasts of Rome are familiar with a good number of Roman emperors. Some are known for being eccentric, cruel, and decidedly dangerous. Who could forget Peter Ustinov's portrayal of Nero in the 1951 epic film Quo Vadis, or John Hurt's performance as the tortured and murderous Caligula in the BBC series I, Claudius? However, as many historians point out, though not always heeded, many of these emperors were not as disastrous or as evil as legend suggests. Some were competent administrators, even highly talented. The sources of the most scandalous anecdotes about these emperors are often suspected of exaggeration or fabrication. Behaviors that scandalize their contemporaries, such as performing in public, might be considered far less offensive today, perhaps even harmless. Some emperors, like Nero or Domitian, have gone down in history as nearly perfect models of paranoid and cruel tyrants. Others, like Diocletian, proved to be good rulers, though not for Christians, who suffered greatly under him. Even under the worst emperors, the empire continued to function, although public life could be extremely dangerous. Let's begin with the first of them all, Tiberius. Tiberius succeeded Augustus, making him the second emperor of Rome. Although Augustus did not see him as the ideal successor, it was only the premature deaths of Augustus's grandsons, Gaius and Lucius, and the exile of his younger brother Agrippa Posthumus that placed Tiberius in the line of succession. Tiberius, a highly talented military commander, respected the Senate, but his sour demeanor earned him many enemies and led to a bitter conflict with Agrippina, the widow of his nephew Germanicus. He entrusted his fate to the ambitious and ruthless Sejanus, whom he made Praetorian prefect. Sejanus established a reign of terror until Tiberius, discovering his plans to usurp power, had him arrested and executed. In his paranoia, Tiberius retired to Capri, accusing everyone of conspiring against him. Those who fell under his suspicion were quickly arrested and executed. Suetonius and Tacitus portray him as a sexual predator, though this might owe more to the imagination of chroniclers than reality. Nevertheless, he showed no mercy in eliminating opposition. While Tiberius was surely no monster, like some of his successors, he did set a precedent for what was to come. Next we have Caligula. Gaius, known as Caligula because of the small military sandals, caligae, he wore as a child in his father's camp, began his reign very young and full of promise. However, after a severe illness, his behavior became erratic and paranoid. There were even rumors of incest with his sister, Julia Drusilla, whom he named his heir. Caligula enjoyed humiliating the Senate, though the famous anecdote about appointing his horse as consul is likely an invention. He attempted to showcase his military credentials, with little success in Germania and Britannia, where his plans ended with a war against the sea. He declared himself a living god, established an absolute monarchy, and used accusations of treason to eliminate his enemies. His death came at the hands of Cassius Chaerea, a Praetorian who killed him during the Palatine Games. Nero. Nero is the emperor we all love to hate. Despite some administrative talent and competent advisors like the Spanish-born Seneca, Nero was a murderer. He began by killing his stepbrother Britannicus, followed by his wife Octavia, and according to rumors, even his mother, though the first attempt was rather comedic. Contrary to the myth, Nero was not responsible for the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD, nor did he play the lyre while the city burned. In fact, he worked diligently to rebuild the city. However, his love for music and poetry led him to force senators and courtiers to endure his performances, contributing to his bad reputation. The construction of his grand residence, the Domus Aurea, and his persecution of Christians earned him many enemies. Ultimately, his reign ended with his suicide on June 9th, 68 AD, after being declared a public enemy by the Senate. His last words, as recorded by Suetonius, were reportedly, "What an artist dies in me." His death marked the end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty and ushered in a civil war. Skipping ahead to Domitian, who reigned at the end of the 1st century AD. The son of Vespasian and brother of Titus, Domitian lacked the charisma of his predecessors. His increasing distrust of the Senate turned into paranoia, leading to a dictatorial and tyrannical rule. He demanded to be addressed as Dominus et Deus, Lord and God, which eventually led to a palace conspiracy involving his wife, Domitia Longina, and members of the court. After his assassination, the Senate condemned his memory, damnatio memoriae, erasing his name from public records. Moving on to Commodus, immortalized by Joaquin Phoenix in the film Gladiator. Unlike his philosopher father, Marcus Aurelius, Commodus was no intellectual. He squandered Rome's treasury and executed wealthy citizens to refill it. An enthusiast of gladiator games, he fought in the arena dressed as Hercules. His reign ended on December 31st, 192 AD, when he was strangled in his bath by a wrestler named Narcissus as part of a conspiracy led by his Praetorian prefect and his lover, Marcia. Caracalla, whose real name was Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, is next. Known for the Gallic cloak he popularized, Caracalla rose to power alongside his brother Geta after their father, Septimius Severus's death. Their fraternal rivalry quickly turned bloody, with Caracalla ordering Geta's murder in their mother's arms. His reign was marked by violence, paranoia, and ambition. He implemented significant measures, such as granting Roman citizenship to all free men in the empire for fiscal reasons, and constructed the impressive baths of Caracalla. He was assassinated in 217 AD during a campaign in the east. Finally, Diocletian. Although not a bad administrator, Diocletian's brutal persecution of Christians secures his place in this list. He divided the empire into a tetrarchy to better manage external pressures, but feared Christianity's impact on imperial unity. His policies failed, and just 25 years later, Constantine would legalize Christianity, with Theodosius later making it the empire's official religion. These 8 emperors continue to be regarded as bad rulers, although much of what we know comes from sources that are not always reliable. After nearly 2,000 years, their reputations remain deeply ingrained in history.